Thank you, Wendy. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the new summer webinar series 2022. Today, we talk about the Prisma Access BPA. So let's have a look into the BPA. What is BPA? BPA is basically a tool which was available already for the next generation firewall. Some of you who are using the next generation firewall, they must be familiar with the BPA best practice assessment tool, which uses your Panorama's tech support file and analyze your Panorama and next generation firewall configuration. So it's a similar, which we'll talk about today about the Prisma Access as well. So it shows the current state of the best practices, security adoption, and also suggests specific changes which are needed to align with the security best practices. It helps you to understand how to improve and where to improve the security posture. It provides a baseline for comparison and shows you how to transition to the best practices. Why we should run the BPA or the best practice assessment? Most of the time, we have observed that the companies typically implement the basic capabilities and postpone the setting up the feature which help them and maximize the protection. If you're implementing the best practices, it helps you to reduce the attack surface. It will help increase the visibility into the network traffic, prevent known and unknown attacks, protect what's the most valuable to your business, property, your source code, sensitive company, and the customer data, critical infrastructure, and whatever gives your company a competitive advantage. So these are the three main areas while running this iterative approach, the BPA, increase visibility with advanced security controls. And with this, you can create a roadmap to increase the threat prevention. And over the period of time, it will improve your security operations. This is how you can transition to the best practices. It's an iterative approach. Run the best practices assessment to evaluate your security posture, and then find out the gaps and prioritize those improvements. Take the next step and transition safely to the best practice state without risking the availability of critical applications. Then run the BPA again to measure the progress and prioritize the next set of security improvements. As I mentioned, the BPA tool was already available with the Palo Alto Networks next generation firewall and the Panorama. The same tool we are using for the Prisma Access. We have introduced this feature for Prisma Access, and the aim is to guide the Prisma Access security posture. Same, you can generate the report using your Panorama tech support file. This BPA report I'm talking about only for Prisma Access Panorama managed. I will talk about the cloud managed at the end. But so if you're using your Prisma Access Panorama managed, you can generate the tech support file, and with the help of the tech support file, you can generate your BPA report, which focus on tracking feature adoption, security posture, and feature those are associated with the Prisma Access only. It helps you to track the best practice recommendation, trending, summary graphs at the tenant level. So if you are in a multi-tenant environment and you're running the BPA report, this BPA report will give you the information and general control on the per tenant level, per deployment level, for your service connection, for your remote networks, mobile user deployment. And it processes the device group and template stack that are configured in the Prisma Access configuration settings and any parent device group for configured device groups in this Prisma Access configurations. Here are some of the features for the Prisma Access BPA report. As I mentioned, you can track the adoption at the per tenant level. If you have the multi-tenant environment, you can track the adoption of your security capabilities and the best practices at per tenant level. You can make it a security compliance framework such as NIST, CIS, and other per tenant level, as well as you can see here the deployment type on the next column. From the deployment type, also you can select and what deployment type you want to see your data, service connections, mobile user, remote networks, and it just helps you to track the security posture and the feature adoption at per tenant level in different graphs. You can see here the overall capability of the adoptions. How to generate Prisma Access BPA report? There are two ways to generate the Prisma Access BPA report. One, you can use your customer support portal account, and you can also use some of the APIs, a BPA API token to generate the report. So how you can generate through your customer support portal account on the CSP. So before you move to generate the report, first of all, make sure that whoever the user is running the BP report, he has the proper privileges are assigned, or the permission assigned to run the BP report. Super users and domain administrator, they can run the BP report. But if there is a standard user is not able to run the BP report, you need to assign the BP role to the user so that he can run the BP report. So you can log in the customer support portal account. After authentication, you will see the home screen on the left side, the manage users. Click on the manage users. It will show the list of all the users you have been added to your customer support portal or CSP. And the standard user, if you want to give the BP role or BP permission, just click on the edit on this pencil or pen. And then we can assign the BPA user role to the standard user. And now this user is able to run the BPA. So this is something, the prerequisite, make sure that the user have the permissions to run the BP report. Then you can log in, and once you log in being a standard user, super user, you will see under the tool the best practice assessment. You need to generate the tech support file from your Panorama, as I mentioned, and then upload that tech support file into the customer support portal. You can select here as an optional, you can map those architecture classification, or you can, for the Prisma Access, you can skip this step as well. The next step, you will select your industry. Most of the time, this is auto-populated field, which is the industry field, which takes the data from the backend. This basically maps the industry standard from which sector your industry belongs to, and get the data accordingly. But you can also drop down menu, you can select if it's not selecting correctly. And from the report type, make sure that you're selecting Prisma Access. There are two available options available here in the drop-down menu. One is Strata, which is for the next generation of firewall, and other ones are Prisma Access. Make sure you're selecting the Prisma Access from the drop-down menu. Then click Submit, and it will generate the report for you. And HTML report will automatically download it to your computer. You can see here the report view, the summary also. And I will talk about the different sections of the report in the next slides. Now let's have a look at the other option, how we can generate the BP report using the API. So API basically, it allows you to programmatically generate the BPA data without providing it the tech support file. You don't need to generate the tech support file every time. But you need a API token for the authentication, and you can request the API token to your customer success team on your account, or the SE on the account, which can help you to get generate the API token for you for the authentication. And you need, for the API token, you need a Postman collection app. Detailed instructions are available on our live community page, the single step-by-step how to use, download, and how to configure each and every step. I'm not going into the detail of those steps, but those are available in our live community. The detail, each and every step is available, how to use this application. So you can please check it out on the live community. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask your customer success team, or you can write us at networksecuritycs@alternetworks.com, and we will be happy to help you. So you can import this Postman collection app, and when it's imported into your environment, you will see that all the information, that BPA APIs and all those details. So you need to configure some environment variables, which is, as I said, the BPA API token, the device information, and user information, IPs information. These user credentials are used to grab the API key for the target Panorama devices, and then this data is sent to the BPA API via HTTPS post request, and task ID is returned to track this BPA process. And then it will execute the API calls from the collection app, and you'll see that it will give you a JSON format of the results. But you can also generate the HTML report or the PDF report as you have generated already through your customer support portal account, but you have to make sure that you're doing this generate zip bundle when you're submitting this report and everything. Make that this is set as true. Generate zip bundle is set as true. Then it will also download the HTML and the PDF report for you as well. Now let's have a look how to identify and prioritize the best practices. We have looked into that how you can generate the report and everything. Let's have a look. So first of all, you will see that once you generated already report, if you have already been used on the NextGen firewall, you must be aware there are two sections of the report. One is adoption heat map, another one is the best practice assessment, the two sections. So if you want to check the adoption of key security capabilities, so if you click on the adoption heat map and adoption summary, which shows the security capabilities adoption as compared to your industry and help you to identify the gaps in your adoption. So this is an iterative and prioritized approach. You can transform your security posture to the best practices one step at a time and make progress as you go at your own pace and the level of comfort. The results shows that the configuration meets or exceeds the industry's average adoption to the wildfire, antivirus, anti-spyware, vulnerability protection, URL filtering. The results also shows that the configuration does not come up to the standard and industry average standard adoption of certain like file blocking profiles or something like in this case here. And in some cases, they're not even the best practice implementation because it varies from each customer's use case is different. So this will indicate the next course of actions for you. You can evaluate whether really you need to add a file blocking profile to or more policies, and see if you can evaluate the existing policy profiles and policies to the best practices to tighten up your security. Check the adoption of key security capabilities. This page shows you not only the level of your adoption as compared to your industry standard, but also you can see that if you have run more than one this BPA report, you can compare the previous data. For example, you can see here we have been running in our lab environment multiple times. So it's quite different. Numbers are more changing. So you can also use this information to compare the previous results as well. Evaluate security policy capabilities adoption. You can review this adoption summary here, which provides an overview of overall adoption of security capabilities. You can see here this report has three sections: overall options, industry's average, and the best practice mode. The overall option is you can see the adoption of security policies which allow rules, and the percentages are based on the number of allow rules that have one or more profiles enabled as a part of the rule. And this BPA report does not count disabled rules or the block rules. In the best practice mode, adoption security policy is configured in the recommended best practice manner in allow rule. And again, this also counts only the rules with the profiles that pass all the best practice checks. And in the industry's average adoption of profiles, in only counting the allow rules of your company's industry or the area which industry belongs to. Identify the gaps in adoption. The heat map shows where your security policy is strong and where there are the gaps in security policy capability adoption that you can focus on improving. So to gain the maximum visibility into the traffic and the maximum protection against attacks, you have to set your goals for security capability adoption and use this recommendation as the best practice baseline. These heat maps help you to identify devices, zones, and areas where you can improve security policy capability adoption. And in the heat map security profile adoption summary, you can check the adoption of rates and capabilities. Identify the rules where you need to improve. You can, after you have identified the gaps in the security policy, now use this rule details to view the list of rules that require further investigation. We can use this column, the filter here options to match the gaps or identification of criteria you have developed when you identify the gaps. For example, to create a rule detail filter to identify that rule allow all the traffic and don't have the vulnerability protection profile configured. So you can use this filters and investigate further. Evaluate best practice configuration. So when you change the view from the heat map to the BPA report, this report shows you the best practice summary. And this summary represents best practice configuration checks results mapped with the control categories of the industry standards such as CIS, NIST, and the purpose of this information is to provide a good way to learn how the BPA checks tie to the industry standards, not to act as an audit for you. So like the adoption summary, best practice summary also includes the metrics that show the current adoption rate and adoption progress. Review the best practice policy configurations. This security rule-based checks summarizes the best practice checks rules by the device group with a pass-fail status and recommendations for what to do about your failed checks. You can see here the question mark, which is kind of help for you if you want to know about the detail of this particular check. Just click on that, and it will pop up the detail and description about that. And you can see that the small camera icon here. If you click on that, it will open a short video about that particular check, so what this check is about and what exactly it is. And you can see here, if some check is failing, underneath we have a recommendation what exactly you're supposed to do here. Review the best practice objects configurations. The object tab shows all the checks which are related to some of the firewall objects. Like you can see here, the antivirus, anti-spyware, vulnerability, URL filtering, wildfire analysis, and log forwarding. So for each, you'll see here, you can select the type of the object you want to review to understand the existing configuration and to identify the potential gaps in the best practice configuration, which are related to the GP or security profiles I mentioned. So for each profile, the report shows the current configuration and how many rules use the profile. The report shows the best practice checks results for the current configuration with the pass-fail status and recommendations. And the network tab shows all the checks which are related to the network configurations. You can select network check you want to review to understand the existing configurations and the potential gaps in the best practices related to zones, GP, IPsec, crypto profiles, zone protection profiles. In the device tab and the Panorama tab, you'll see the two tabs, which shows all the checks which are related to the device management configurations. You can select a device management check if you want to review and understand the existing configuration and identify the gaps and the best practices which are related to the Panorama device management itself, and which include, you can also see in the Panorama tab, you can see some of the checks which are dynamic updates, management interface settings, administrators, Panorama administrators, all those information you can see here. And again, of course, for each check, you can see the past fail status and some of the recommendations in case a check is failed. Yeah, this is the Panorama tab I talked about in the previous slides, also the same thing. Now, let's have a look how you can prioritize the best practice changes. First of all, strengthen the posture. Strengthening your device management posture secures by your environment, the security operations by preventing unauthorized access that could compromise. So it reduces the potential impact of unexpected events and provides a great visibility into your security operations or Prisma Access day-to-day operations. You can follow the best practices for securing administrative access to prevent unauthorized, unsecured access to the device management interface. So after you configure those changes, to identify the changes, gaps, configure those changes, run the BPA again to validate those changes. Improve the visibility. You can't protect yourself against threats you can't see. So you must ensure that you have full visibility into the traffic across all the users and applications all the time. Complete visibility into the applications, content, and the users on your network is the first step towards informed policy control. So maximize your security profile adoption. Once you review your adoption summary, identify the gaps in adoptions, remediate the gaps using your safe transition steps, and move towards the best practices. Then maximize the logging adoptions, log forwarding across all your security rule base. Configure the dynamic and the content updates to ensure that your Panorama and all have the latest update and threat signatures to protect your network. And then plan your SSL decryption deployment based on the best practices. Enable user ID. The use zones where internal trusted zone from which traffic initiate to map the application traffic and associate threats to the user devices. Then implementation is best practice controls. So once you gain the full visibility and context of the traffic on your network, application, content, threats, and the users, implement a strict control to reduce the attack surface and prevent known and unknown threats to complete the transition to best practice configurations. Review the adoption summary, identify the gaps, safe transition, same step, and then you can use the policy optimizer to convert the port-based rules to application-based rules. Create user-based access policies. Deploy your practice zone protection profiles across all the zones. Deploy the SSL decryption. So once you implement all these control and capabilities, then you can rerun this the BPA again to validate all those changes and measure the progress, and then prioritize the next phase of changes. Then it comes in fine tuning. Once you implemented all those changes, implemented all those controls over your network, applications, content, and threads, then start fine tuning the controls and implement the additional functionality to improve your security posture. And then again, you can run the BP again to measure your progress and see how exactly now your security posture is. Transition to the best practices. So security profiles enables you to inspect your traffic for threats such as vulnerability, exploits, malware, and even unknown threats, and prevent them from compromising your network using various types of threat signatures. So the end goal is to reach a best practice state for all of your security profiles, however, to ensure the availability of the business critical applications. It may not be feasible to implement a full practice security profile configuration from a start. In most cases, you can safely block some signature files, types, or protocols while alerting of the other until you gain the information and confidence to finish a safe transition to the best practices. So the glaring weakness of the port security based security policy are well known. So you can't see which application uses a port. So any malicious applications can gain access to your network or open ports such as port HTTP, port 80, or port 53. So this makes it easier for attacker to install the malware through your network. So in contrast, the application security policy using the app ID provides visibility into the application regardless of the port, protocol, encryption. So you know exactly which application your network, and you can inspect your traffic threats. So application-specific policies enable safe access because you can configure security policy rules that allow the right users to access. Using the app ID to classify applications reduces the attack surface because you allow only those applications which require support for your business and the network. So next we have the best practice checks in the cloud. So till this point, whatever I talk about, this was totally related to the Panorama managed Prisma Access, all this. So if you have any questions, please feel free to post in the Q&A. The next section is I will talk about the best practice check in the cloud managed Prisma Access. For the cloud managed Prisma Access, we don't have any specific BPA tool as of today, which run the best BPA and best practice assessment and make it a security posture, but we have built-in best practice checks for all of their security policies and configurations. Let's have a look into that. So the best practice checks directly to the Prisma Access so that you can get a live evaluation of your configurations. We have built this best practice checks are available for your security policy rule-based. The rule-based checks looks at how your security policy is organized, managed, security rules, security profiles, anti-spyware, vulnerability protection, wildfire, URL filtering, DNS security, authentication, decryption, and of course, will protect as well. To check comprehensive best practice assessment, you can see all the field past checks across all the rules, examine the best practices, and you can review the NIST security controls and the CIS as we have in the BPA report as well. And you can see the overall best practice view. So if you're running a cloud manager, you want to look into that to get started, you can log into your cloud managed console. On the overview page, go to the managed service and setup, and you can see there this overall best practice dashboard view. You can see how you're doing at a very high level, and what are the areas where you need to do some action, what are the potential gaps, and what checks are failing. And you can find the description of and each of your check once you click on that. Each security rule has a built-in best practice checks, as you mentioned. You can get all those details, field level recommendations. You can use and take action right away. And then we have this security policy. Here you can get a comprehensive view of how your implementation of feature aligns with the best practices. You can examine the field checks to see where you can make improvements. Rule-based checks highlights configuration changes you can make outside of individual rules. For example, to policy objects that is used across several rules. And this is a best practice report or dashboard. You can see here the four section: rule-based checks, rule checks, and the profile checks. Under the summary. The summary tab actually gives you the comprehensive view of all of your checks, whether it's a pass, failed, and access your best practice adoption rate for the key feature areas. Rule check, look at and look at how your policy is organized and whether configuration settings that apply across many rules align with the best practices. And then the rules tab, if you go to the rule tab, it will show you how the rules are failing the best practices and CIS checks. You can take quick action to fix those failed checks. These rules are sorted based on the sessions count, so you can start reviewing and updating the rules. And then you have the profiles. The next section you see here, the profiles. In the profile section, once you go there, it will show you how your profiles stack up against the best practices. Profiles perform advanced inspection. So if you're using the best practice dashboard, the Prisma Access, you can filter this report based on your configurations, your deployment type, mobile user, service connection, remote network. And then you can also download or share this report using all the cycles. So it's a built-in and PDF version report. Also, you can generate it with top 20 field rules as well. You can generate that report. So this is all about the Prisma Access best practice assessment. You'll see that we have talked about today the Panorama manage, Prisma Access with the cloud manage, which has a built-in. So at this point, I will highly encourage you to please run the Prisma Access BPA today.